Who on earth told you that we didn't have? Who told you? Who
Who
told you that we didn't have access? We were in it. We were part of it. When you say they, you mean we. Who told you that we couldn't access the information that you don't know the name of?
Documents and that they refused to come
Who
up
told
and
you
play
this?
ball with us.
Who told you this?
It was on the news.
What documents? Off the top of your head.
For certain documents.
Yeah, what document?
I can't remember which documents they were.
Do you have a
right?
single
Because there was lots of
scintilla? Do you have a
documents and lots
single
of lies.
scintilla of fact to
Lies.
support anything that you're saying? Can you think of one example of lies, of corruption? No, you just said off the top of my head examples of the corruption and lies they were telling us in 2015.
Well, they didn't come across with the answers.
Corruption and lies,
Not
please.
so much they didn't lie.
Well, hang you just said they did.
Hang on. Right, I'm getting a little bit... Right. It wasn't so much that they lied.
Right. No, it was the
It's that
corruption.
they didn't give us the information that we requested about figures, about this, that, and the other.
What information is that then?
You might expect a calm debate on the radio, but what unfolds instead is a fierce verbal clash. James O'Brien is at his sharpest here, steadily dismantling a furious Brexiteer who attacks the EU with emotion and accusations. Within moments, the tension rises. The caller shouts about lies, corruption, and betrayal, while O'Brien remains composed, pressing him again and again to provide evidence. The result is a striking contrast: reason against emotion, fact against feeling. And that's exactly what makes it impossible to turn away. This is more than just a phone-in, it's a lesson in how weak arguments collapse the moment they're tested by logic and evidence. Watch closely as the caller's claims fall apart under pressure and let us know in the comments who you think came out on top. If you enjoy sharp, no-nonsense analysis of heated debates, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.
What's caused the worseness, if that's a word,
Yeah.
is not that we've left the EU. It's the fact that there was a pandemic followed straight after by a war.
Yeah,
you can't blame what's going on.
It's not, though, is it? Because
Yes, it is. This is the point you're missing.
Okay. Well, I mean, where are you getting your information from? Because I'm getting mine from the IMF, the Bank of England.
The IMF.
Yeah,
right?
and the Bank of England.
They're the people that said we're going to have...
But where are you getting your information from?
They're the people that said that we were going to have go into recession and we're the only one that's not going to make any money.
We've got...
Just before the pandemic,
Yeah.
in between the small gap between leaving and the pandemic, this country was making more money.
Okay, mate.
Right?
Yeah, okay. Where are you getting your information from about the 4% hit to GDP having nothing to do with Brexit? You heard the governor of the Bank of
news
England yesterday.
And LBC, to be honest.
Pardon?
LBC. I listen to you and I listen to what they say. What
Right.
they're saying
Well, you haven't
is,
heard me
right,
say
What
that.
they're saying is, right, that
Yeah.
the 4%, right,
Yeah.
drop
Yeah.
is based on Liz Trust.
No, they're not saying that.
That's what it's from.
It's-
That's the period that they're taking their analysts from.
It's over the last 3 years.
Well,
She was only Prime Minister for 10 minutes last
so,
year, mate.
so out of them last 3 years, what have we had?
So it's 100. Is it 100 million or 100 billion a year? It must be 100 billion, mustn't it?
Tell me what we've actually had. We've had pandemic.
Yeah,
We've had war.
Yes, I know,
We've
mate.
had-
But there's literally nobody who thinks Brexit's had nothing to do with our decline, because all the other countries have had pandemic
no,
and war.
Brexit, only Remainers.
No, Andy,
feel
just
that way.
have a little think about this. We're doing worse than all the other countries that had the pandemic and the war as well.
What, before or after?
Before or after what, Andy?
Well, I don't know. You're asking the question.
Yeah, okay, let me try again. The things you're blaming for our problems happen to all the other countries that we're being compared to, and we're
Yeah.
still bottom.
Right. So the immediate problem that we had,
Yeah.
and I didn't agree with Miss Truss being leader of the party.
Don't make me
I'm not
remind
even
you that we're looking at 3 years of economic damage.
But
That's
two-
not
two-
because of
two-
Liz
over
Truss.
2 of them years,
Yeah.
right? We was
Okay.
everyone in the world was struggling, right? But just prior to that, we was one of the best at
but why do you
getting our
keep
money.
saying that again, Adelsi? Where are you getting that information from? You think that in 2018 we were going great guns economically?
Yeah.
Okay, where are you getting that information from?
Same price that you get yours.
Well,
Media.
No, but
and
you're not.
everywhere else.
You're not though, because that's not an opinion, is it? That's counting, and no one has provided figures to back up that. Let's pretend you're right, okay? Let's pretend that the British economy was the best, doing brilliantly between 2016 and 2018. We hadn't left the European Union then, of course, but today,
No, just after we left the EU.
Yeah,
When
but we didn't leave.
Officially left.
But we
the
didn't
EU.
leave, did we? That was 3 years ago.
And look at the corruption, right?
Yeah.
That was coming out of the EU when we was trying to leave.
Worse than
lie after lie after lie. Refusal to give us all the facts about what was going on.
And what's your best example of that, Andy?
Well, the fact that when we signed up for the common market,
hang on a
we
minute.
was paying,
Carry on.
For us to join, right?
Yeah.
We agreed, wrongly in my opinion, to pay 16% on top of anything that we buy.
Yeah.
Right.
So what was the lie
we got rid
that
of
they
that.
were what were the lies they were telling us in 2016, 2017?
They wasn't coming across with when we asked for.
But you just said all the corruption.
They refused to give it.
Yeah, you just
The
said
way
all the
EU
listen, Andy. I'm
went
going to keep
about
you
the
on until.
breakup.
Yeah,
All
you
they
just said
wanted
all
to
the
do was
corruption.
punish us.
You just said all the corruption and lies, and I just want an answer to an example of what you're talking about.
In this heated exchange, the caller launches into sweeping accusations of lies, corruption, and blanket condemnations of the European Union. Yet when you look closer, the claims collapse under scrutiny. The EU, like any major political institution, has its flaws, but branding it as inherently corrupt is not an argument rooted in fact. It's more an expression of frustration than a case built on evidence. These charges hang in the air without ever landing on specifics. The Union's treaties, directives, and regulations are all publicly available, written in black and white. The real issue has often been how UK politicians selectively framed or distorted those rules for domestic purposes, creating a haze of misinformation that many voters mistook for official EU messaging. The lie narrative is an easy one to repeat, but it fails to point to any actual deception. What it truly reveals is the way national leaders used Brussels as a convenient scapegoat to cover their own failings.
About what was happening.
Go on.
Well, everything that the EU was doing.
Yeah, go on. What?
I mean, they lied about the vaccine that we gave them.
But that was long after Brexit, Andy. You
But
just
it
said.
doesn't matter.
Well,
They lied.
mate,
They
if you say,
continue to lie.
I don't know what you're talking about, and I mean that politely. But if you say, and then there was all the corruption and lies that came out just before we left, you have to.
You're not telling me that the EU,
Okay.
the unelected dictatorship of the EU,
Yeah.
didn't lie.
All right, but well, I can say that they didn't if you can't give me an example of them doing it. So go on, have another go.
Off the top of my head,
Yeah.
right, because I've just done a long drive,
Okay.
and I didn't expect to be on here.
Did
I
we
haven't
ring
got
you?
any,
Did we take you by
at the
surprise?
moment,
We've
and I know
got to
that
stop.
sounds
Hang on a minute. You've got to stop ringing people unexpectedly. All right, poor fella's just had a long drive. Yeah, what's he going to do if LBC are on the phone and they put him live on the radio and he's got to actually explain? Sorry, mate, I had no idea that we took you by surprise this morning. But crack on.
That's all right. Yeah, I mean, you take the vaccine.
No. You just said off the top of my head examples of the corruption and lies they were telling us in 2015.
Well, they didn't come across with the answers.
Corruption and lies,
Not
please.
so much they didn't lie.
Well, you just said they did.
Hang on. All right, I'm getting a little bit... Right. It wasn't so much that they lied.
Right. No, it was the
It's
corruption.
that they didn't give us the information that we requested about figures, about this, that and the other.
What information is that then?
Any information that we asked for, they refused to give us.
When did they do that then?
When we was campaigning to leave.
What information do you think that you're talking about?
All the finances and what they're taking and that.
Who on
Yeah,
earth told you that we
what
didn't
they've
have?
been
Who
doing
told
is
you? Who told you that we didn't have access? We were in it. We were part of it. When you say they, you mean we. Who told you that we couldn't access the information that you don't know the name of?
Documents and that they refused to come
Who
up
told
and
you
play
this?
ball with us.
Who told you this?
It was on the news.
What documents? Off the top of your head.
For certain documents.
Yeah, what document?
I can't remember which documents they were.
Do you have a
right?
single
Because there was lots of
scintilla? Do you have a
documents and lots
single
lies.
scintilla of fact to
Lies.
support anything that you're saying? Can you think of one example of lies, of corruption, of documents? Go on.
Right, it might not have been them, but since then.
No, before.
No, this is what we were dealing with.
Yeah,
People
go on.
that
Before,
lie
Andy.
about the vaccine.
What was the lie about the vaccine, Andy?
They said that it killed people.
Who said that? The
it wasn't
European?
good enough.
Are you talking about the European Union now?
Later on, they just wanted to discredit us.
Okay, let's go back to the central question.
This is a claim that falls apart the moment you look at the facts. The rollout of COVID-19 vaccines across Europe was among the most complex logistical operations in modern history. Yes, there were initial hurdles, supply shortages, disputes with pharmaceutical companies, and slower approvals compared to the UK. But to frame those early challenges as lies or deliberate deception is simply inaccurate. The European Medicines Agency openly released its evaluation procedures, trial data, and approval timelines. Every step was documented, every decision debated in public view. When the caller insists that the COVID vaccine kills people, the argument shifts from misunderstanding into outright dangerous misinformation. The reality is that vaccines underwent rigorous trials involving tens of thousands of participants before approval. Agencies such as the EMA, the UK's MHRA, and the US FDA only gave the green light once the overwhelming evidence showed the vaccines were both safe and effective. Were there side effects? Certainly. As with any medical treatment, some experienced mild reactions like fever, fatigue, or a sore arm. In rare cases, there were complications such as blood clots linked to specific vaccines, but those instances were exceptionally uncommon, and the risk was far smaller than the dangers of contracting COVID itself.
What do you want? What do you want?
I want to continue to not be in the EU.
Why?
Why? Because I think they're a corrupt organisation.
Give me some evidence of that.
I'll give you evidence that.
Go on.
The evidence is what you see.
Yeah, go on. What can you see?
Where's our car industry?
What?
Where's our car industry?
Well, it's just hit the lowest level since before the Mini was produced.
Why?
Because there's supply chain issues, but a large part of it is the fact that we're not in the single market anymore. So our biggest market.
No, because we never sold cars in the single market.
Right. I mean, this is a little bit like.
Very few cars. The only people that prospered, right,
Yeah.
about vehicle manufacturing
Yeah.
in the EU and why we was in the EU was Germany
Yeah.
and France.
So why is it worse now than it was when we were in it?
Well, because we haven't had a chance to rebuild it. We've had a pandemic and a war on.
And how are we going to... So have Germany.
Eh?
So have Germany.
Yeah, and Germany failed to support Ukraine.
So why is their
until
car industry doing so much better than ours then?
Why? It's because over the 40 years that we've been in there, they've been systematically bringing our
Go on.
industry down to nothing.
How did they do that?
By selling off the assets that we've got in this country, like car. Why don't we?
So Germany
continue
sold
to
off.
build,
How did Germany sell off British assets? Just
They
have to dump
bought-
that because you swore. I'm just going to take you back. So how did Germany sell off things that were owned by Britain?
Well, they bought the Mini.
Well,
Right.
then that is then owned by the Germans, isn't
Germany.
it? Yeah. I don't think this is going very well, and I don't think you and I are ever going to meet. Can you just?
Well, we won't, because you're such a
Go on.
staunch Remainer that you will not accept.
Well, what do you think I
anything.
should accept? What is the thing you've said to me that you think I should dwell on after we say goodbye?
Well, there is nothing I can say that you will.
I promise you there is. I've asked you several times for some evidence, some examples.
Well, I've told you evidence. Where's our car industry?
But that... Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Where's our Ford Transits built now?
Yeah.
One of the more striking arguments from the caller concerned the car industry. He insisted that Britain's membership in the European Union crippled domestic car manufacturing and that leaving the EU would somehow spark a revival. On the surface, that claim sounds bold, even convincing to someone already predisposed to believe Brussels is to blame for everything. But the moment you dig into the history, the claim collapses. The truth is, the decline of Britain's car industry didn't start with the EU. It didn't even start in the years leading up to membership. It began decades earlier, long before the UK joined the European Community in 1973. By the 1960s and 1970s, British car companies were already in deep trouble. Years of underinvestment, outdated technology, poor management, and bitter industrial disputes had left the sector vulnerable. While Britain clung to old methods, Germany and Japan were pioneering leaner, more efficient production systems. The gap widened year after year, and British cars developed a reputation for poor reliability compared to their international rivals. So when the UK eventually joined the common market, the industry was not being strangled by Europe. It was being offered a lifeline. Far from stifling the sector, EU membership gave Britain something it desperately needed: access to a massive, tariff-free trading bloc that attracted international investment. This is not speculation, it is economic history. Global car makers like Nissan, Toyota, BMW, and Honda did not choose Britain as a production base out of sentimentality or charity. They came because EU membership made the UK an ideal gateway into the European single market. Billions were invested in British plants, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Sunderland's Nissan factory became one of the most efficient car plants in Europe, exporting the majority of its vehicles directly to EU customers. Without access to that market, such investment would almost certainly have gone elsewhere, to Germany, Spain, or Central Europe. This is the uncomfortable truth the caller's argument ignores. The EU didn't wreck the British car industry, it helped rebuild it. It didn't drain Britain's economy. It opened doors to the largest market in the world, and it certainly didn't operate in the shadows. Its treaties, directives, and regulations were published in full, freely accessible to anyone who cared to read them. What the caller framed as corruption, lies, and sabotage is, in reality, a story of domestic mismanagement dressed up as someone else's fault. The collapse of iconic British brands like Rover and British Leyland was not because of Brussels, but because of decades of poor strategic choices at home. Instead of acknowledging those failures, politicians found it easier to point the finger at Europe, a scapegoat that could absorb the anger of voters while shielding domestic leaders from accountability. And that brings us to the irony of the Brexit promise. For decades, EU membership was the very reason global manufacturers invested in Britain. Inside the EU, Britain looked like a stable base for production. Outside, it looks riskier, weighed down by new layers of bureaucracy, customs checks, and uncertainty. The very companies that once poured money into UK factories are now questioning whether those investments make sense without guaranteed access to the European market. The caller's outrage may make for fiery radio, but it doesn't stand up to evidence. If anything, this example of the car industry highlights a deeper lesson. It is easy to win an argument with emotion, to fire up a crowd with anger and blame. It is much harder to win an argument with facts, because facts demand accountability. And in this case, the facts show clearly that the EU didn't cripple British car manufacturing, it kept it alive. The real sabotage came not from Brussels, but from decades of neglect and mismanagement at home.